There are so many places to go and things to see in our world today that we sometimes take for granted the beauty of our own backyards. Our next story is the perfect example of this. A rancher from Texas was enjoying some time off and decided to return home early. But what he saw left him in shock. You won't believe it. The land he had owned for decades looked like something out of a science fiction movie. Marvin Heimer moved to Texas with his family over 40 years ago. Back then, the place they were moving to was nothing but a vast piece of land with plenty of space for them to build their dream house. They worked hard to turn this land into a ranch and make it their own. Over the years, they raised several children here and enjoyed every moment of living far away from the noise of the city. Marvin and his wife loved their life on the ranch so much that they never thought about selling it. However, there were times when nature would remind them just how small they are in comparison to its vastness. Storms would come through every once in a while that would shake the ground beneath their feet. Other times, it would be the wildlife that would surprise them. There were plenty of animals that lived around the ranch, such as deer, foxes, armadillos, and even coyotes. Sometimes these animals would get too close for comfort, but for the most part, they stayed out of sight and minded their own business. After all those years, the ranch had become a second skin to them. Every rock monolith, every tree, every bush, and every inch of the land was familiar to them. This made it even more shocking when one day everything changed dramatically, and they didn't know why. It was a Saturday morning, and Marvin decided to take a break from his chores. It had been a busy week, and he needed to clear his head. He grabbed his truck keys and drove off to the nearest gas station to fill up on some coffee and maybe do a little shopping. His wife, Martha, was at the local farmer's market, so he was on his own for now. The drive to the gas station wasn't long, but when he arrived, he decided to call his wife and see if she needed anything else from the store. "Hey, honey, how's it going? Need anything else?" Marvin asked. "Nope, I think I'm done. How about you?" Martha said, "Same here. I'm actually getting ready to head back right now." "See you soon," Marvin replied. He hung up and got into his truck, ready to head back home. But then he noticed something strange on the horizon. It looked like a thick, dark cloud, but it wasn't moving. As he looked through the windshield, he couldn't quite make out what it was. Curiosity got the best of him, so he decided to investigate. He drove closer to the object, but it still wasn't clear what it was. Then suddenly, as he rounded a bend, everything became clear. He slammed on the brakes and couldn't believe what he was seeing. In front of him was a massive sinkhole. It was wide and deep, and at the bottom of it, he could see a glimmer of light. From where he stood, it didn't look too big. But as he started driving closer, he realized that it was bigger than he had initially thought. It was almost the size of his entire ranch. The edges of the hole were crumbling, making it clear that it had been there for a while. He parked his truck and walked towards it. The closer he got, the worse it smelled. At first, he couldn't quite put his finger on the stench. But then he realized that it was the smell of rotten eggs. That's when he noticed the sulfur crystals on the ground around the sinkhole. As he continued his investigation, he came across animal bones. Some of them were too big to be from a coyote or a fox. Were these the remnants of a larger animal that had fallen into the sinkhole and died? Or was this something else entirely? He continued walking until he reached the edge of the hole. It was too deep for him to see the bottom, but he could feel the wind coming from it. The air around him started to become colder, and the hair on the back of his neck stood up. He felt like he was being watched. Was he crazy, or was there really something down there in that hole? Whatever it was, it didn't seem to be friendly. He turned around and quickly walked back to his truck. As he drove away, he couldn't help but look back at the sinkhole. It didn't look right in the middle of his land. He knew that something wasn't right here, and whatever it was dangerous. He drove home slowly, thinking about what he had just seen. He told his wife everything that had happened, and they decided to contact the authorities to investigate. As they waited for help to arrive, they sat on their porch watching the sunset over their land. They had never seen anything like this before, and they didn't know what to expect. When the police arrived, they were just as shocked as Marvin and his wife. They had never seen anything like this in the area, and they didn't know what to do. They contacted a local geologist, who was able to come out and take a look at the sinkhole. According to him, this was nothing unusual. He explained that this was a natural phenomenon that can happen when the ground underneath your feet collapses. The hole that had appeared in the middle of their land was just one of these occurrences. The geologist also explained to them why this happened at their ranch. Apparently, the soil underneath their feet was made up of limestone, which is a type of rock that erodes easily when exposed to water. This means that if there is a buildup of pressure below the ground, it can cause the limestone above it to collapse. And that's exactly what happened here. There was a buildup of pressure below the ground, and when it was released, the limestone collapsed. But what caused this pressure to build up in the first place? Well, according to the geologist, that's not really important because there's nothing they can do to stop it from happening again. He explained that this is just a natural process that happens from time to time. So they should just accept it and move on. When the geologists left, Marvin and his wife were left feeling helpless. They had no idea what to do next. Their entire ranch had been destroyed, and they had no way of knowing when another sinkhole would appear. That's when they decided to contact the government for help. After talking to a few officials, they agreed to buy their ranch and use it as a research facility for studying sinkholes. So that's the end of the story. Marvin and his wife lost their home and everything in it, but at least they got paid for it. This is a sad story, but it's also a reminder that we should always be prepared for anything. You never know when a disaster will strike, but if you're prepared, you can make the best of any situation. Do you know anyone who has ever experienced something like this? If so, share their stories in the comments below. We would love to hear them. Thank you for listening and stay tuned for more videos like this one. We appreciate your support and hope you keep following along. Have a great day.